When Ohuhu reached out and asked me if I wanted to partner with them and try out their new water-based markers in this video, I immediately said yes. And I'll tell you why I jumped in so fast in a minute, because first, I wanted to let you know that today's video is intended to show us how fun and approachable having an art practice can be. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Paula. I'm a full-time artist. If you're not new, welcome back. Let's take a closer look at these markers and get creative. As you can see, I'm just gonna open these right now, just before starting today's sketchbook practice. This is a first. As I said, I was excited about these markers because I haven't used water-based markers in so long. Like easily over 10 years. So having this huge colorful set sent to me sounded like a dream, and I couldn't wait to play with them. Because I just opened them, of course I haven't swatched them yet, but play comes first in my mind. So I grabbed one randomly and I started to try it out on my sketchbook by painting a line with it. I'm literally doodling, doing the satisfying stuff first. I took a little pause after that first line, so when I came back to it, it was dry. So when I drew more lines on top with the same marker, they didn't blend, they layered and it looks like texture, which I like. I was just trying them out, but because for some reason I did this directly on my sketchbook and not on scrap paper, I decided that I would keep this page and make it be something somehow. So I reached for other colors I thought would look nice and painted more lines. I mean, in a way, I'm swatching a few, right? I wanted to go back on top of them like I did with the first one, but the third line was still wet, so I couldn't really do it because you couldn't see the difference. If it's wet, it just blends in and creates no difference. So I decided to let it dry a bit, and while that happened, I would try the opposite side of the markers with the pen nib. So I started to outline the scribbles that I made. This felt great. When I was done with that first line, the other ones were dry enough to get noticeable lines on top. And when I finished those, I thought I would outline all of them with my black marker. Done, but it didn't look like much. I was winging it after all. So I thought maybe it would be nice to add a little frame around the whole page to pull it all together. I didn't have a concrete idea, I'm just playing and seeing what I could come up with, so after that I felt like drawing scribbles on top, so I did. And then I made those lines darker and thicker in some areas by going over them, and that's it. Here's my first idea of the day, which is basically a happy accident because honestly I had no plan. Moving on to the second idea though, I decided I needed to swatch the markers to get more familiar with them, even though they came with this printed swatch card that is pretty close to the actual colors. Anyhow, I thought it best to get familiar with the colors, so swatched them and picked some colors out for the second page. For this one, I do have a plan. So we are starting with a taped border and by drawing some circles. I'm going to do some abstract floral circles, which I decided to create with the same doodle lines I used on the previous page. This is honestly crazy satisfying to paint and super easy. What I'm doing is just layering 3 colors so I get a little bit of an overlap to make it interesting. I have 3 flowers, but I'm changing the color for one of them to see how it looks. Color the whole background with the lightest marker of the set just to get a more satisfying tape peel at the end. And then I grabbed a darker brown to create some lines and dots for the center of the flowers with the fine pen side. I also outlined the other 2 colors of the flowers like I did on the previous page since I found it to be so satisfying. I really liked that little edge. Got the tape peel I was craving, and here's idea number 2. I really like this one. I think it's beautiful. The color combinations are really nice, and of course, because these are water-based markers, I'm able to use both sides of the paper without it bleeding through. Let's see how this would look as a large, beautiful print. Ah, I love it. Next page. Again, I'm taping an edge around it to just keep things neater, and I chose a different color palette for this one. I start with more mark making, just creating random paint stains with my markers. I'm going around the page using the different warm colors I chose, mostly yellows that I decided to complement with some purple and then tie in with pink.
When I was happy with the amount of colors I had on the page, I brought in a different color to draw a trunk because yes, this is going to be a tree. I love painting trees, and I'm always trying different ways to do that. So I didn't want to miss the opportunity to try one with these markers. I am making up the trunk as I go, and the interesting thing about this is that it's kind of nice to see how it shows more through some markers than the others, and I can make it look like the branches are going in and out from the foliage. I wasn't going to paint the background, but then I chose to put in a gray line for the ground. Then I went back on top of all of the foliage with the same colors, creating little markings on top in a very painterly way, making it look more like little abstract leaves on top. This step tied all of the colors together because I used the marks to overlap and connect the whole thing. I decided to add a dark brown and some hot pink for the marks on top to create more depth. Then I did end up painting the whole background with my lightest color again. Here comes the tape peel, yum yum yum, and done. I really like how this one turned out, and of course you know that means again I'm going to show it to you like a painting mocked up in a room. Okay, moving on, idea number 4. Got a lot of markers out in rainbow order. Wait, that doesn't look right. Okay, much better. Let me quickly explain what I'm doing on this page, and after that I'll tell you the backstory that inspired this. I'm just going to do a lot of doodles with bright colors very playfully and randomly, which is completely different to my normal style. When I was doing this, it reminded me of, I think she's Australian, an Australian painter called Tiff Manuel. I'll link her Instagram profile on the description. Very playful, seemingly chaotic line work that looks and feels super free. This idea was inspired by a couple of things. First of all, my nostalgic feelings of playing with markers, which I hadn't done since school. And second, by an experience I had last week teaching a workshop in Italy. It was amazing, and I'll tell you more about that trip on a different video. But for now, the story is I had back-to-back short workshops for 2 days, only 30 minutes each. And right when I was having the break in the middle of the second day, a young woman came in a little early, like, 5 to 10 minutes before the workshop actually started. But I was okay with it, and I told her, of course you can come in, and I was trying to show her what the workshop was about. Now, there was a language barrier because I understand some Italian, but I can't really speak it, and she couldn't understand English or Spanish at all. Regardless, we managed to start the first quick exercise with fast mark making. She was very dismissive about it, barely making a circle or two, and at one point she looked up at me and said, "Mi sento como una bimba," which I could easily understand with my super basic Italian. It means I feel like a little girl. And I was so excited that she was feeling that, and I answered, "Certo, questo è esattamente quello che voglio," which is probably mispronounced, but I was trying to say that that was exactly the feeling I wanted her to connect with. But I could tell she was actually very uncomfortable with feeling like a little girl playing with color and paint markers, and this felt maybe stupid or nonsensical to her. So after a little while, more people came in, and the person who was working with me translating arrived from break, and she said, "Okay, I've had enough," and left. She didn't actually do the rest of the exercises or process, which was okay. I could see and understand that she just felt uncomfortable with the whole exercise, and getting in touch with this playful self felt like a waste of her time. At first, I thought it was weird because most people that came were leaving the workshop super inspired, taking their work proudly with them, and super happy and grateful to have this unexpected, creative, relaxing time. A lot of people actually signed up for the next day again after doing the first workshop. I think I had almost 200 people go through the workshop, and she was one that really stuck with me. And after reflecting about it, I think it is because I've felt the same way. And it made me a bit sad that I couldn't help her through. I've been there where I thought my creative endeavors were maybe silly or childish, where I thought making art should be either museum grade or it was a waste of time and should be merely presented as a little hobby. I have been in that place where I thought my creations were not valid because they weren't as good as things I saw around me, or because I couldn't really paint what I was imagining. Back then, I didn't yet understand the immense value of creating, making, and truly bringing my childish, playful self forward. It's not that easy to liberate ourselves from all of the years of ideas of what an adult should be or do, or what a creative practice is and should give you. So today my plan was to put all of the rules I have for creating on a shelf and try to be a little girl playing with markers. Being the joy of it for myself, my mental health, and my own happiness. I'm doing this for me, and that makes it the best spent time. Period. And I hope with this little video, I can inspire you to do the same for yourself. Take time to create for you, for your enjoyment, because all that a creative practice needs to be is something that brings you pleasure and peace. Don't worry about the results. Results come from practice and learning from mistakes. We won't all be admired artists whose name everyone knows, but who cares? We all have the birthright to fun and making our souls happy. I mean, we all eat, and that doesn't mean we all need to be chefs, right? Same thing. I hope you remember that. As I was yapping, my doodle page came together, and from that, I only think I need to explain that whenever I started to overthink what I was doing, I just drew a random line in the middle of the white spaces and then figured out how to connect it later, just to keep myself free. Maybe even as a print, it would definitely brighten up any space it's displayed. Okay, with that, next idea, and I'm going to work on the opposite page. Since I like having pages that are on the same spread matched to an extent, I thought I would use bright colors again, and I thought a galaxy full of colorful planets would work. So I drew a bunch of circles and erased the lines a bit so they wouldn't show through the marker. The page seemed a little unbalanced, so the first thing I did was fill some of those empty spaces with yellow stars, which I then outlined with different shades of blue that I started blending little by little to create the effect of space. See, the water-based markers that I used as a kid did not blend like this. I remember the streaky mess fondly. But I'm happy today these ones act differently. They blend a little like alcohol markers, which is nice. I've been using my Ohuhu alcohol markers on a daily basis almost because I just launched my own coloring book, so needless to say, I've been doing a lot of coloring to promote it, and also because it's become my favorite relaxing activity. In case you're interested, my book is in the simple and bold style, which means it's really easy to color, which makes it super relaxing. I prefer simple pages that I can finish fast and get the satisfaction. Thanks to Ohuhu, I am having a coloring contest for my book and giving away a beautiful set of 120 alcohol markers like this one. So you can grab a copy of my book and enter the contest. Entries will be received up to December 10, 2024 on my Instagram account. And if you don't want to enter the contest to get some free markers, you can get a 10% discount on all products of the Ohuhu website using my code Paula Art 10, which is valid until May 20th, 2025. And of course, I'll put into the description too. So I slowly mixed the same blue markers to fill all of the background, and for the bottom part of the page, I mixed in some purples too. Time to go in and start coloring the planets. Here, I wanted to use a lot of bright and different colors, so I started with green and then some pinks and oranges and etc. And I made such a mess for this page. Look at my desk. It's a mess, and so were my hands. I don't even know how I stained them so much, but I washed them and let the page dry for a bit. Came back to it, and guess what? I absolutely hate it. I think it's so bad. Having an artistic tantrum level bad, and briefly considering tearing the page off and pretending it never existed. That sounded like a plan, but I've matured since I started my channel and I started sharing these videos, so I had a, what is the adult acceptable equivalent to an artistic tantrum? I had a brief period of loading the page, and then I decided to try to fix it a bit by using my paint markers. So I brought in my Ohuhu acrylic markers too, and I tried to do outlines, add some little extra stars and some highlights, and make it more dimensional maybe. But honestly, I gave up, appreciating the fun I had painting it and getting my satisfaction from the tape peel. Page done. So let's move on and get some tape on this new page, and I felt I wanted to keep playing, so I'm doing this for my 10-year-old self because I would have died of joy if I received a box of markers like this one when I was 10. So beautiful, so many colors, perfectly organized. They all have their little spots and you can just close your case with the zipper. Oh my gosh, it's perfect, so dreamy. So I wanted to do what I think any self-respecting 10-year-old would do with a set of markers like this, and it was to use every single color in order. I started with the yellow, creating 2 lines on opposite sides of my page, and then I started to go around those with each of the colors, like I said, in order. I thought somehow that I was gonna be able to do all of the 60 colors and have like a super satisfying, almost rainbow effect, but just on the first flap of the marker set, which holds 12 markers, I was done. I had no more space and I didn't want to do any more layers on top because I liked how the 2 arches were connecting with one color. That's how I wanted the composition to look. So I grabbed a neutral color and color in the whole background, pulled my tape out, and here it is. I like it. I think it's kind of boho, I guess. I don't know. Let me show it to you on a mock-up. I think it's a pretty cool idea for a print. Now, on to the next page. I was a little frustrated I didn't get to use more markers in an orderly, satisfying way. So I thought I'd use the second part of the set and all of those 12 new markers. I started by just drawing a curvy line, and I'm not going to keep all the lines the same like I did before, but give them more movement. I drew my first line, and for some reason I felt like stopping and looking back at everything I had done so far, and then I saw it. I don't know if you can see it as well on camera, but there's blue on top of the abstract. So I touched it and it kind of feels wet, and you can see my hand is stained too. I mean, the markers are water-based after all, so they take a while to dry on this thick watercolor paper. So I checked my other pages, and yeah, I was moving on to the next thing too fast before anything I did was really dry. It's not that noticeable on camera again, but it's there. So because I didn't really want to take a break now and wait until paint dries, I added some blank paper in between the pages to keep them from staining each other, and I washed my hands again. Okay, back to the idea, and like I said, I drew a line with each color. When I was done using all 12 markers, I thought I would let it dry a little bit because you can see just from painting the page, my hands are stained once more. I wanted to add some details, but I thought I would paint the background first and let it dry a little bit. When it dried, I came in with the same markers and drew some details on top. I'm using the same colors but in different order just to get some contrast depending on the areas I'm painting. And a thing I loved about these marker set is that I now have 60 different colors of fine pens, and that is just so fun. This was a fun page too, not as fun as the previous one, but I liked it. Even though both pages still left me wanting for that childish satisfaction of using every single marker on a page. So I went ahead and did it off camera, just for myself, after I finished filming. It is nothing fancy or great, but I needed to get it done. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I truly hope it helped reframe your artistic play, and that in some way this video gives you permission to play like a kid again. I know I had so much fun doing these pages, it definitely felt like play. And hey, I got a couple of results that really are gorgeous little pieces of art. I actually am thinking of offering some of my pages as prints. What do you think? Okay, with that, I'll see you on Friday with our regular video, and I hope that you're having the most wonderful day. Bye!